Have you ever seen a consecutive interpreter in action? It's kind of mind-blowing. Someone listens to this long 5-minute speech. We're talking data, complex ideas, all of it. And then they just repeat it perfectly in a totally different language. It seriously looks like a superpower, right? An impossible feat of memory. But what if I told you it's not magic? It's a system.
But really, how do they do it? You see them making a few little scribbles on a notepad, but there's no way that's the whole speech. So are they all just geniuses with perfect photographic memories? Well, the real answer is actually way more interesting than that.
See, it's not about having a better memory, it's about using your memory smarter. The real key is this incredibly powerful, elegant, and, you'll be surprised, simple system of note-taking. So today, we're going to crack the code and break down the method that makes this amazing feat totally possible.
Okay, so first up, understanding the interpreter's challenge. The very first thing you have to get your head around is that an interpreter's notepad isn't a script. Not at all. Think of it more like a map of ideas. It doesn't tell them exactly what was said word for word. Instead, it just reminds them of the journey the speaker's argument took. And the first rule of this map is all about direction. This foundational principle, which was first really laid out by an interpreter named Jean-François Rosen, is called verticality. And the idea is super simple. Whenever you have a list of things that are all equally important, like, say, a list of countries or companies, you don't write them out in a long line. You stack them vertically.
And you can see the difference right away, can't you? It's night and day. On the left, that horizontal note is just a jumbled line of text. But on the right, the vertical stack instantly shows you, hey, this is a list of 3 equal things. It's cleaner, it's faster to read, and your brain just gets it. Now imagine if that was a list of 10 countries. The horizontal note would be a total mess, but the vertical one would stay perfectly clear.
Which brings us to our second big idea, mapping ideas vertically. So stacking gives us structure for lists, but speeches aren't just lists, right? They have main points and side points, big ideas and little details. So the next layer of the system uses the rest of the page, the horizontal space, to map out this hierarchy of importance.
So, for example, take a speech like this. The speaker isn't just listing facts, they're making a comparison. They're emphasizing Canada first and then talking about Poland. A simple word-for-word transcript will lose all that nuance, but the interpreter has to capture it to deliver the speech with the right emphasis. So, how do they do it?
Well, they use this simple, brilliant rule. The more important an idea is, the further to the left on the page you write it. By shifting the notes for Canada and Poland way over into that left-hand margin, the interpreter creates this powerful visual cue. When they glance at their notes, all that empty space practically screams, hey, this is a key point. Emphasize this.
And yep, you guessed it, the opposite is just as powerful. If a speaker throws in a secondary thought or a less critical detail, the interpreter just shifts that note over to the right. This visually separates the main argument from all the supporting details. It creates an instant map of what really matters, and it declutters the core message.
All right, on to principle 3, shifting for importance. So now we've got our map's layout, right? Vertical for lists, horizontal shifts for what's important. But what about the actual language of the map? You know, those strange scribbles and symbols. This is where we get into the secret shorthand.
And here is the crucial insight, the big aha moment. Interpreters don't have a symbol for every single word. That would be impossible to learn. Instead, one symbol represents an entire concept. A single little mark might mean to suggest, to propose, or to put forward. They're not noting the exact words. They're noting the idea underneath them. And the coolest part is how they build this language. It's organic. You start with a simple root symbol like square for country. Then you can just add a couple of letters to create a whole family of related ideas. National, nationalize. Same thing with a circle for person. Add a little smiley face for an emotion or a squiggly line for a thought process. You're not memorizing a dictionary, you're learning a logic. And if there's an MVP of symbols, it's gotta be the arrow. It's the ultimate multi-tool, and it just perfectly shows how elegant this system is. With just a simple change in direction or shape, it can mean causality, growth, decline, relationships, or a return. It's so efficient, capturing these really complex ideas with just a single stroke of the pen.
And get this, the guy who pioneered a lot of this, Jean-François Rosen, he believed you only needed about 20 core symbols to get started. 20. That's it. And that just proves the power isn't in memorizing hundreds of symbols. It's in mastering a small, versatile toolkit and knowing how to use it within the whole system.
Okay, this brings us to our fourth and, honestly, most advanced principle,
the symbol shorthand. We've got the structure, we've got the symbols, but the final piece of the puzzle is completely counterintuitive. It's not about what you write down, it's about what you leave out.
Just think about it for a second. With everything happening so fast, the speaker talking, you're listening, analyzing, what's the one thing that would give you more time and more mental space?
It's knowing what not to write. This is the secret weapon. The notes are not a replacement for your memory. They are triggers for your memory. The interpreter has to trust their brain to hold on to the details, and they use the notes just to provide the essential skeleton, that map, to guide their recall.
So for example, take a phrase like in more than 190 countries. A beginner might try to scribble all that out, but the pro, they just write the number inside a set of brackets. That's it. That simple little trigger is enough to jog the memory for the whole clause. It tells them, hey, remember that secondary detail about a number of countries? And their short-term memory just fills in the blank. It saves precious, precious seconds.
Now, this idea of strategic forgetting, it's everywhere. You can just skip the verb to be. If a speaker says, some people think X, but others think Y, you only have to note the first part. The second is just its logical opposite. If they give a long list of examples, just writing e.g. and the first item is usually enough to recall the vibe of the rest. It's all about trusting your brain and writing the absolute minimum you need to reactivate the memory. And this brings us to our final takeaway, the power of forgetting. When you put it all together, you see the magic trick for what it really is. A brilliant, disciplined system that weaves together page layout, conceptual symbols, and a deep understanding of what to write versus what to simply remember.
So the key takeaway here isn't just for professional interpreters. This is really a toolkit for thinking. The next time you take notes, ask yourself, are you structuring your lists vertically to see patterns? Are you shifting ideas on the page to show what's important? Are you using simple symbols for big concepts? And most importantly, are you using empty space to trust and trigger your own memory?
Because in the end, that's the question this whole system makes us ask. Every single time we put a pen to paper to capture an idea, we're making a choice. Are we just passively writing a transcript of words? Or are we actively analyzing, structuring, and drawing a map that will lead us right back to the heart of the idea?